Alright guys, today I'm going to be installing my StopTech big brake kit that I got from Rockstar Garage. This is the C43 Nickel set. So I'm going to get these boxes opened up and show you what they look like. Alright, so here we go. We got the StopTech C43 Nickel big brake kit for the S2000. I got these from Rockstar Garage. This is not sponsored by them, but Rockstar just had the absolute best price that I could find anywhere. They were significantly lower than even the next lowest price that I found. So I just want to give them a shout out for a great deal on these. I love these brakes. They're just look amazing. You see they're all CNC billet, the really nice nickel finish. And the rotors are a two-piece floating design with a machined aluminum top hat. Quality is just incredible on these. So anyway, let's get started, get these put on the car. I don't know if you've ever tried to take these screws out of your rotor before on a Honda, but if you don't have the proper tool or do them the correct way, they can be a real pain in the ass. A lot of people just try to use a screwdriver and turn them. That doesn't really work. You have to use an impact driver. So it has your normal Phillips head on it, but whenever you hit it with a hammer, it impacts this head and rotates. So it puts a jolt to the bolt, which will break up any rust or anything built up in the threads, and then it twists the bolt. So I'm going to show you how to do this the correct way. You're going to take your impact driver and put it in the screw. Now while you're doing this, you're going to be putting pressure towards the direction that you want it to come off. So as you hit it, and then it rotates and breaks it free. I'll show you that again. And they come off very easy. The right tool makes everything so much easier. Alright, we'll get the rest of this torn apart and we'll get the new stuff put on. Alright, here's a quick comparison of the stock brakes versus the new StopTechs. You see the original caliper only has a single piston, and the new StopTech has 4 pistons, 2 here and 2 here. These are significantly lighter. This is cast iron, so it's very heavy. This is billet aluminum, so this probably weighs a pound, where this is about 10. I don't know the exact weight on these, but it's a very significant weight difference. And then the rotor itself isn't that much bigger. Now you're talking maybe 10 millimeters, 5 millimeter all the way around. So, but the main difference is the thickness. You see these are massively thicker, so they're going to handle brake fade much better than the factory. You see they have a much more efficient cooling design, and the rotors themselves have a air gap between the rotor and the top hat for even more cooling. So anyway, we're gonna get these cleaned up. StopTech says that you need to wash these with soap and water. Clean them thoroughly with soap and water, and then come back and clean them with brake parts cleaner. Now, these have a rust prevention coating on them, so whenever you wash that off, you will start to see some surface rust, but that's nothing to worry about. That will come off whenever once you do your brake bedding procedure. And I'll tell you all more about that later. But the brake bedding procedure is basically just how you seat the pads to the rotor, get them up to temperature to where you won't have any warping or fading issues. But like I said, we'll get into that later once everything's installed. Alright, so I got the rotors all cleaned up with the specs that I got from StopTech on what to do. And now you can see there's a little bit of a hazy finish to the rotor now, and you can see some very light rust, but I dried them off pretty quick, so you can see like some rust down in the grooves. That's all completely normal, because now that rust preventative coating has been stripped. Once the brake bedding procedure is done and these rotors are up to temperature, all that's going to go away. So anyway, let's start getting them ready and put them on the car now. little interesting piece of information. I just found out that you have to put these brackets on before you put the rotor on. They're grooves right here, so the rotor actually goes around them, but there's not enough clearance to get it in there once the rotor's on. Now with most brakes, if you've done a lot in the past, normally you put the rotor on before the caliper bracket, but this is the opposite, so just so you know. Alright guys, I've been trying to keep the factory dust shield in place, and I'm just having a lot of issues with it. I mean, I've tried to dent it in a little bit here, push it back, trim it here for the caliper bracket, and I'm still just having problems with the rotor touching it. StopTech actually recommends to remove the dust shield completely, not trim it. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove it now. I wanted to try to keep it, but it's just not worth it. So what they recommend to do is grab these screws back here with a pair of a pair of vice grips, get them to bite into the head of the bolt here, and then you can rotate them out, and as you can see, that actually worked very well. So I guess you should just read the instructions before you try to install stuff. They probably have already done this a couple times, know what they're talking about. So anyway, I'm gonna get the rest of these out, and then once you get all the bolts out, you're gonna rotate it around and cut it with a pair of tin snips like I used to cut here, and then the dust shield will come right out. The proper way to remove this is to actually pull the hub out of the spindle, but yeah, I'm not doing that. That's a lot of work, and this dust shield is trash anyway. So anyway, I'm gonna get this all finished up, and then we'll finish the install. Alright, I got the dust shield off, and as you can see right here, there are two little lips on either side of each one of these bolts, and that makes it really difficult to get the vice grips to grip onto the bolts. These two I actually was able to get out without doing anything, but this one here was being a real bitch. So I actually took a punch and tapped these two humps down with a hammer, and then instantly I was able to lock onto that bolt and break it loose. So if you're having trouble getting your vice grips to grab on here, just you know, knock those two humps down a little bit, and then they pop off real easy. Alright guys, that is it. Got everything all bolted up, ready to go. Got the brake pads installed. The brake line is installed. The dust covered heat shield is removed. I went ahead and cleaned and painted my hub, got my rotor lock screws back in, and everything just looks really nice. So whenever you're going back together, these bolts here on the top of the caliper, that bolt right there, those get torqued to 30 foot-pounds, and the bolts going into the caliper bracket, those get torqued to 80 foot-pounds. Make sure you have a washer on each side of your banjo bolt here for the brake line. And that is pretty much it, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. There's no reason for me to film that because it's the exact same process as what I just did. So once I'm done with that side, we'll get the wheels put back on and then we'll start the brake bedding procedure. All right guys, stick around for a minute. All right guys, got both sides done. Now I'm going to bleed the brakes. I've actually already started bleeding them, but I'll show you. This is my final bleed, but I just wanted to show you all how to do it. You have two bleeder screws. You have one at the top here and you have another one right here. Make sure your brake fluid reservoir is full and clean. Then your best way to do it if you're by yourself like me is to get you one of these hand pump vacuum bleeders with a little reservoir. So what I do is set my wrench on the bleeder screw and put your vacuum bleeder on there. Then go ahead and give it a few pumps and give it a few pumps and then crack your bleeder screw open. You're gonna see clean fluid start to come out. I've actually gone back and forth about 3 times now, doing the passenger side, then driver side, passenger side, driver side, alternating back and forth. So that you get all the air out of the system. So you're just gonna sit here and pump it for a while, get all that air out to where you see just nice clean fluid flowing. And you can see it doesn't appear that I have any air bubbles left in there. So I'm just going to give it a nice few pumps and then close that bleeder screw. Give it a few pumps and top it off. And then we're gonna go to the other bleeder screw on the front here. Same process. Attach it, pump it up, crack it open. Let it flow for a good while. Wait till we get nice clean fluid coming out with no bubbles, and then Go ahead and block that one. Give it a few pumps and pop it off. And once you're all done with both sides, make sure your bleeder valves are nice and snug. You don't want to tighten them, like over tighten them, but just make sure they're snug. Put your dust caps on, and we're done. We're gonna go drive the car and do the brake bedding procedure. Alright, we're gonna start the brake bedding procedure. From StopTech, the procedure is to make 10 60-mile-per-hour to 10-mile-per-hour 80 to 90% effort braking stops. And you're going to want to do 10 of those in a row with a 10-minute cool down time of driving at 50 miles per hour for 10 minutes, and then doing that procedure again. So 10 consecutive stops of 60 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour. Now you're going to want to make sure that you can drive your car on a road that you can do those kind of speeds, do them safely, and do it whenever no other cars are around. So I know the perfect place to go, so we'll get headed over there, and then we'll start with our bedding procedure. Now before you start the bedding procedure, or before the bedding procedure is complete, you're going to want to use the brakes as little as possible. And whenever you do have to use the brakes, be very gentle. One more thing that you're going to want to do is not allow the car to go into ABS. So you're going to apply the brakes basically right up to the point that ABS would be kicking in, and then back off just a little bit. So if ABS is 100%, you're going to want to do 80 to 90% brake force.